As we mentioned, Wall Street was also digesting a GDP report that was ugly, showing worse than expected growth, 1.3% in the second quarter. And this next fact may be more important. A revised first quarter reading of nearly 0.4% growth.
Right, and it was revised from 1.9%. You think, how'd they get that number wrong?
Thought.
Terrible. We have an all-star team, though, in place to break down the markets, the economy, and the debt drama. Joining us from John Thomas Financial CEO, Tom Belesis, along with Stifel Nicholas market strategist Kevin Karan, and Moody's Capital Markets chief economist John Lonsky. Let me get to you first, Tom Belesis. You know, you look at all of these numbers, but the GDP number, put aside what's going on in D.C., we don't have any growth in this nation.
We don't, and the results are quite obvious between the GDP and the durable goods, that this administration has been a complete failure to the American people. I mean, you know, what's more frustrating than this, you have emerging economies doing well, and here in the States, you have corporate America recovering actually very well. You have S&P 500 earnings at a record high. 75% of all companies in the S&P have beat expectations. Unfortunately, you have Main Street America not recovering. Why? Due to unemployment. I mean, this administration has had a devastating effect on this economy, and it shows in the numbers.
Well, Kevin, there's nothing worse than looking for a job in this economy. That is the worst. But there's some people, I've had people come to me saying, well, I get paid off with my T-bills. We had a piece in a Wall Street Journal today. These guys had T-bills that are due on August 4th. Of course, August 2nd is the vote. Sure. They're worried about getting redemption, getting their money back from the government. Will they?
Well, they certainly will. In time, what you're dealing with is a government that's collecting.
So there's no. Let me just emphasize that there is no doubt in your mind that the government will not default.
You could have a technical default, but bondholders will get paid. Let me explain why.
Okay, because doesn't technical default mean these T-bill holders won't get a redemption? They will
be paid in time. What we're talking about is a government that's bringing in $2 trillion of revenue into their coffers. They have $400 billion of obligations to bondholders over time. There's a cash flow issue here in terms of when debt comes due versus when it's paid. And what we're going to be talking about over the next week, if we come closer to having some trouble on the August 2nd deadline, is going to be having to do with the prioritization of payments. And that's why the Treasury has been out there talking up the order in which things get paid. Bondholders get paid first.
John Lonsky, let us ask you this very simple question. How can it be, as Tom Belesis pointed out, that we have 75% of the S&P 500 companies doing really well, beating earnings expectations, yet our economy has slowed to what was it, David? 0.4% from the first quarter? How is that? You as an economist, explain.
Well, thank goodness emerging market countries are still growing rapidly. That helps explain part of this paradox. And when we think about it further, consider how poorly small businesses are doing, small businesses being the primary driver of jobs growth in the United States. Small businesses are doing poorly. Corporations are thriving because corporations have access to overseas markets. Small businesses have much less access to foreign markets. Net exports added about 0.6% to first quarter real GDP growth. In fact, exports reached a record high percent of GDP in the second quarter. All of this reminds me that the focus of U.S. economic activity is shifting from consumption to production. So you want to be on the right side of this particular equation.
Well, we're on the wrong side of the jobs equation. There's no question, Tom Belesis. There is this growing divide in this country, as Liz was saying, expanding on what Liz was saying, between the big corporations who are posting record profits right now and the small guys, which is really the base of the economy. That's where most of the job growth comes from. That's where most of the innovation comes from. And those guys, the heart of our economy, is getting killed.
It is, Dave. I mean, new business creation is at the lowest level since 1983. Yet we've added 75 million more people. Why are we down 7 million jobs? I'll tell you why. Because the Obama administration has killed the small businessman. Small businesses represent 80% of all the job creation in the United States of America.
Small businesses, though, Tom, are still being created. What do you mean killed them? What, through are you saying regulation, too much of it?
Well, Liz, let me put it to you this way. I mean, look at the projections that this administration put forth when Obama got elected. Unemployment would never surpass 8.7% if they did nothing. It went to 10, we're at 9.2 and probably counting higher. look what happened with the economy. I mean, we're contracting, as you see with the numbers. At the end of the day, I think this administration, if he was in the private sector, would have been fired. We should ask for his resignation now.
But you know why maybe some people aren't so upset? Because they see that since he got in, the stock market is up more than 20% off the lows.
That is a very good point, but the stock market is off the lows because corporations and the movers and shakers have been smart, sharp, and they did exactly what they knew how to do when we got in a tough time in the economy, and they represented very well, and that's why America is where it is here today.
Kevin, bottom line, what worries people most is they won't be able to get their money back, that we may be going, and something was hinted by Senator Harry Reid today. He never backed it up. But there was a conversation between Harry Reid and Tom Geithner about finances. Harry Reid suggested that we may be going back to 2008, that awful period when there was a money crunch, when people were worried about actually getting their money back from the bank, from their regular banking deposits. Is there any danger of something like that happening, a lockup again?
Well, there's a danger, but I want to emphasize that the risk of it is very low. When we look at the markets away from the stock market, when we look at things like the interbank lending market, whether banks are willing to lend to one another, there's not a lot of sense in the credit markets that there's a lot of stress right now. I think that ultimately this is a lot of high drama. I think that it's bringing the electorate into it. There's a lot of anger that's out there. I've never heard personally this much anger in terms of the people that I'm speaking to, and this cuts both ways.
Right.
I think we've come too close to the drop-dead date, and no one's happy with the way that Washington's been playing this out so close to a deadline.
John
It's so important to America.
John Lonsky, give us your last thought here. Something good, hopefully.
Well, you know, I could say that we've gone from the Great Recession to the Great Stagnation. We have a lot of reason to worry. We need all the help we can get from Washington. We do not need the current stalemate that adds to uncertainty and makes it all the more difficult to attain a respectable rate of economic growth and a return of material jobs creation. Get the job done this weekend, guys, please.
By the way, one stock pick, Kevin. What's your favorite?
I'm going to go with Pepsi. I think it's consistent. It does well no matter what happens to the economy. It's a solid company.
Coke?
I'm going to go with Pepsi. I think it's a better value.
Yeah, I like that.
Coke,
Hey, why
Pepsi.
not?
All right. Thanks to Tom Belesis, Kevin Caron, and John Lonsky. Here's what's ahead on Bulls and Bears.